Hi friends, it's Amy. Welcome to my bookish life. Today we're going to go a little crazy because it's time for the mid-year book freakout tag. So let's get to it. Alright, the mid-year book freakout tag is all over BookTube every year. I like doing this tag because it really gets me to look at how my reading is going in the first half of the year and really focus on where my reading is going in the second half of the year. I just really think it's great. So, first, a sum up of what I have read. I have read 106 books in the first half of the year. My Goodreads goal every year, I set it at 100 just because I don't want to freak out about having to reach the goal, and I really just want all of the stats that I get for being part of the challenge. However, every year I tell myself in my head that I want to have reached 100 by June, by the end of June. It really defeats the purpose of not freaking out about my goal. But here we are. It is what it is. All right. Then question number 1 is best book so far. So I want to talk about 2 books. One is middle grade. One is for an adult audience. So the middle grade book is Sisters of the Neversea by Cynthia Leitich Smith. I loved this book so much. It is a modern day retelling, reimagining of Peter Pan, and I love how everything was updated to be put into the modern era. It really takes the problematic and toxic things about the original story of Peter Pan and brings them to light, turns them on their face, and really just criticizes it and makes it better. I love that so much. We have a family that is going through something terrible, and 2 sisters who are trying to determine if they will still be sisters if their parents get divorced. And it is just tragic for them to even think about what could happen and what's going to happen in that scenario when suddenly they're whisked off to Neverland. And in Neverland, they are separated and they find their way to each other. And it's just, in Neverland, they are separated and they are working to try and find their way back to each other. And it's just so beautifully written, so beautifully done, and I absolutely cannot recommend it enough. The other book that I want to talk about is The Reading List by Sara Nisha Adams. This book I read in February. I will not remember any of the names of the characters, but I remember how I felt reading this book so clearly, so distinctly, and so wonderfully. I loved my reading time with this book. We have an older gentleman, and he is grieving the loss of his wife, and he finds a library book, and so he decides to return it in order to try to feel a connection with his late wife. It's really difficult for him to find the courage to do this, and he is really disheartened by an interaction that he has with a library employee. Upon reflection, this young library employee realizes that she probably wasn't as nice as she could have been to this gentleman, this older gentleman, and she decides that she wants to make up for it. The way that she finds to do this is with the reading list. She finds this reading list in the library that says, "In case you need it," and a list of books. So she decides to read these books so that she can suggest the older man read them. And then they form this pseudo buddy read book club of these books and come together and grieve together. And it just is a really beautiful look at how generations can come together, and not family generations, but like humanity's generations. You know what I'm saying? Like, They have very little in common, but they're able to find that common ground, and I love that so much. So, yeah, those are my two best books of the year. Although, I've loved a lot of the books that I've read this year, so stay tuned. Number 2 is best sequel you've read so far this year. And again, I'm going to talk about 2. One, again, is a middle grade and one is an adult audience book. So the first one is The One and Only Ruby. I loved The One and Only Ivan. I loved The One and Only Bob. I didn't like it as much as The One and Only Ivan, but I loved being back in that world and seeing those characters again. The One and Only Ruby took me right back to The One and Only Ivan and how much I absolutely loved that book. And it's beautiful. Ruby is the young elephant that is a character in The One and Only Ivan. She lives in the mall zoo with Ivan, not in the same enclosure, but in that zoo, and that she calls him Uncle Ivan. And in The One and Only Ruby, it's told through a flashback that tells us how Ruby came to be at the mall and live at the mall. And it is a tragic story, but it's also a beautiful story, and I really loved it. I saw somewhere in one of the reviews, or it might have even been a blurb, where somebody said, I never knew that a young little elephant could teach me so much about humanity, and it is 100% true. I absolutely loved it. I was barely into my digital ARC before I ordered the physical copy for my classroom. It is so good. So good. And then the other book that I want to talk about, I was actually really weary of picking up. It's actually right here. I was very weary to pick this one up because it takes place during the COVID pandemic. The action starts in January, and we have the Ames cousins from Close Quarters #1. The Ames cousins are looking into the future. One of them is going to be going to work on a cruise ship, and one of them is going to be going to college. And we all know what happened to cruise ships and colleges in March of 2020. So you see it coming, and you know it's coming, and it's still heartbreaking when it happens. One thing that I loved about this book is that as much as the pandemic was central to the story, it's not really about the pandemic. It's about how these 4 cousins work to overcome the adversity they encounter when the pandemic strikes. And I loved it. I loved it so much. I just loved it. I want to go to La Crosse so I can meet the Ames cousins in the flesh. However, they are not real. They are fictional. And that makes me sad. But it was so good. So good. This is by Amanda Zieba. A Pivotal Pause by Amanda Zieba. I'm so sorry. I did not even say the name of this book. I just showed you the cover. So it is Close Quarters, A Pivotal Pause by Amanda Zieba. The 3rd book just came out. I am looking forward to reading that one yet. Which 2023 releases that you haven't read yet. That is one of them. Make Yourself at Home. It is the 3rd book in the Close Quarters series. I have put it several times in my bag to read when I have a chance, and I just have not had a chance to pick it up yet. Also, every year I have had a Finlay Donovan book on this list, and yet again I do. I'm working on it. I will read this book. Right now it just looks very pretty in the shelf right there. But I will be reading that. Also, I could add to that list every book of the month book that I have received, because I haven't read these yet either. But I'm going to take care of that this month, because catch up with that. I'm going to catch up on some of those. I'm pretty excited. So yeah. So that was number 3. Number 4 is my most anticipated release in the second half. And I'm going to say Katherine Center's newest release, Hello Stranger, is the book that I am most looking forward to. I just absolutely have loved every Katherine Center book that I have read. I've read What You Wish For and The Bodyguard. Both of those 5 stars all of the way. Happiness for Beginners, I just read in June, and I wouldn't say that it is my favorite, for sure. Definitely still between 4 and 5 stars, but it's a little bit more, it doesn't have the same tone that What You Wish For and The Bodyguard had. And that tone that I just love wasn't necessarily there. And so it took me a little bit longer, a little bit more to get into the book. However, I still loved it. I still loved it completely. And I'm really looking forward to her next book coming out, Hello Stranger. And I am getting it. It's coming in Book of the Month. So that will be my newest release that I will be reading for Catch-Up-A-Thon. So it's going to get read the month that I have it. I'm very excited about that. Number 5 is my biggest disappointment, and there's 2 of them, okay? And I'm not going to say that I hated either of these books, because I didn't hate them. I had visceral reactions to one of these books, for sure. But the first book is Final Girls by Riley Sager. I wanted to love this book as much as I loved Home Before Dark, and as much as I loved The Last Time I Lied. And I didn't. I did not feel that same connection to the characters. I wasn't rooting for them. I didn't feel that what was happening was anything remotely plausible. It just didn't make any sense to me. And I wasn't really surprised by the twist at all. And I don't usually see twists coming. I really just don't. I see that a twist is coming, but I don't usually know exactly what it is. And I saw it coming a mile away, and I was just sad. It was so sad. It just wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I think that's why I was disappointed. I don't know that I think that it's a bad book, per se, but I don't believe that it is Riley Sager's best book. The other one that I was very disappointed in is After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And again, I have loved 2 of her books. I loved Daisy Jones and the Six, and I loved One True Loves. And I wanted After I Do to have that same root for me feeling, and I did not have any kind of root for me feeling for either of the main characters in this couple. In fact, I hated the main character, the first person narrator. I hated her. And honestly, I hated her best friend even more. And I felt like Lauren, the main character, deserved better. And I wouldn't wish a friend like Mila on my worst enemy. Okay? She was terrible. She was self-centered. She was full of herself. I did not like her. Didn't like her. I did, however, root for Lauren's family. They're awesome. Charlie and Rachel are two wonderful characters that I just absolutely adored, and they really were the reason that I kept on reading the book. Also, I kind of wanted to know what was going to happen, so I can't say that I wasn't completely, like, that I wasn't invested, because I was. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I just wanted what happened to be bad for Lauren. Honestly, I just didn't want. I don't like myself for saying that. And it's not fair that I feel that much animosity towards a fictional character. Ooh, all right. Then number 6 is biggest Nope, that was number 5. Number 6 is biggest surprise. And honestly, hearing the description of this book, I knew that it sounded like a book that I wanted to read. However, I was very intimidated by the format of this book. I read my first manga this year. Manga, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. But I read my first one this year. In January. I knew that I wanted to try one, and Becca from Becca Books and Bujo was talking about Spy Family, and it just sounded so adorable that I felt like if I was going to try manga, that is one that I would like to try. And I loved it. It was so delightful. Sorry for the angle change. My foot was falling asleep and I needed to adjust. So, my biggest surprise again was Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo. And Twilight is a spy, and he needs to, for his next mission, he needs to have a family. So he hires a woman to be his wife, and she just happens to be an assassin. He doesn't know that. And he adopts a child from a local orphanage to be his child. And Anya is just a delightful ray of sunshine, but who can also read minds. And it is just delightful watching this family interact, and they are pretty much strangers, but they stand up for each other and are there for each other, and I just really loved it. I love watching them interact and seeing them together. It was a hoot to read, and I just really, really enjoyed it. So I'm very glad to say that my first experience with manga was scary, but surprisingly delightful. Question number 7 is favorite new author, and I am going to say that this year I have cemented Katherine Center as one of my favorite authors. Like, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Katherine Center is one of my favorite authors. I have read 3 books, and I have given all 3 of her books 4 to 5 stars, and I just look forward to getting any Katherine Center book in my hands. So Katherine Center is newly what I would consider to be an absolute favorite author, that I gravitate toward her books and towards her stories and how she tells a story. And yeah. So not really surprising to me that she would be a favorite, but I'm calling it, she's a favorite. Number 8 is newest favorite character, and I've already actually mentioned both of them, but I loved Ruby from the One and Only Ruby in One and Only Ivan. But oh man, like, I just love Ruby, this cute little elephant that makes the world a better place. I love Ruby. Ruby is just amazing as a character, and I just had a renewed feeling of love for her. Another character that I absolutely love, I just mentioned, is Anya from Spy Family. She is just, as I said, a ray of sunshine that is just delightful. You can read people's thoughts, and she really uses that to her advantage, and I love how she does that. She's just beautiful, and she's got these big old eyes that just you can't say no to. So yeah, anyway, definitely Anya from Spy Family and Ruby from the one and only Ruby. Number 9 is a book that made me cry, and that is definitely the reading list. I cry a lot at books, like a lot. Like most books make me cry. Happiness for Beginners made me cry. I cried in Pivotal Pause. It for sure cried. Heartstoppers, I cried. Yeah, I mean, I would have to say that I more often than not cry reading books, but the reading list really made me cry. I just felt so much for these characters and felt so much connection to these characters. I just absolutely loved them, and I just cried for them. And yeah, it was the best kind of cry ever. And number 10 is a book that made you happy. I'm going to talk about 2 books. They're in the same series. That is If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy and By the Book by Jasmine Gilroy. This is the Meant to Be series. It is fairy tales reimagined in a modern world, in a realistic modern world. So, If the Shoe Fits is a Cinderella retelling, and what I love about that, it made me so happy, is seeing all of the Easter eggs from the Disney movies of Cinderella. We had a younger brother named Gus, who every time I saw that character, I just saw Gus, the little mouse. He was so cute. I just really loved the Easter eggs in both of these. By the Book is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and so many wonderful reflections of those Disney movies just brought to life. And I loved both of them. They just both made me so happy reading them. I borrowed If the Shoe Fits, and I have a digital copy of By the Book, and I kind of just want a physical copy of this series in my hands because they're beautiful and I love them. So they made me very happy. Number 11 is the most beautiful book that I have acquired, and that would be Big Tree by Brian Selznick. Not only is this cover beautiful, look at this font is gorgeous, but in true Brian Selznick fashion, we have the illustrations on the inside, which add to the telling of the story so well. Definitely excited to dig into this one. I'm actually pretty mad at myself that I haven't yet done so. I would definitely say that that's my most beautifully acquired book. Number 12, last but not least, is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Obviously, I just said Big Tree, Finlay Donovan, Jumps the Gun, romantic comedy, Curtis Sittenfeld, The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer, The Last Word by Taylor Adams. The third book in the Close Quarters series, all of them. I need to read them all the books. Anyway, that's all I have for you for today. I would love to hear down in the comments your favorite book so far of 2023, but also I would love to hear what books have made you happy, because honestly, I love books that make me smile from ear to ear. So put those down in the comments, because I would love to add them to my ever-growing chaotic TBR. I love to chat with you down in the comments, so please do. I hope that you like this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more from me, I would love it if you subscribed. I hope you're finding something wonderful to read, and until next time, Happy reading. Bye.